Hello, welcome to our channel Qubit Educational Services. In this video, we are going to introduce ourselves to the topic of partial differential equations. Before we jump in, let us go through the contents. The first thing that we will be doing is a revision of the univariable calculus or calculus of functions of single variable and the corresponding differential equations, which we have called ordinary differential equations. Then we will take a brief review of partial differentiation before we jump into partial differential equations. Then comes the main part, the definition of a partial differential equation and associated terms. You will find that the terms which we use for ordinary differential equations such as general solution, particular solution, order are common with partial differential equations. One big advantage which partial differential equations have over the ordinary differential equations is that the variety of applications of partial differential equations. It doesn't mean that ordinary differential equations have limited applications. It simply means that partial differential equations can be used to model a whole lot of new phenomena which are otherwise impossible to model with ordinary differential equations. To quote a few examples, partial differential equations find their applications in dynamics, elasticity, heat transfer, quantum mechanics, and electromagnetic theory. Depending on your engineering discipline, you may have already encountered some partial differential equations in your relevant subjects. For example, heat transfer is one of the important subjects in thermal sciences for mechanical engineers. Electromagnetic theory is an important topic for electrical engineers. The wave equation in the quantum mechanics is an example of partial differential equation, and in this course we are going to model the one-dimensional version of the wave equation. Having discussed the definition and related terms, we will state the fundamental theorem of superposition. A similar theorem was used in developing solutions of higher order ordinary differential equations. And at last, we will solve some partial differential equations which can be treated as an ordinary differential equation and can be solved. Keeping these points in mind, let us start. We will start with a recap of ordinary differential equations. Note that you are not directly introduced to the topic of ordinary differential equations. You first started with calculus of single variable, where you defined the functions of single variable. You defined their types such as exponential functions, trigonometric functions, inverse trigonometric functions, logarithmic functions, algebraic functions, and so on. Then you developed the ideas of limit of a function and continuity of a function over an interval or at a point. We then defined differentiability, the differentiable functions, and more importantly the derivative of the function with respect to the independent variable x. We then studied integration, both the indefinite and the definite integrals. We developed the techniques of integration such as by parts, by partial fractions, and by substitution. And we also studied the fundamental theorem of integral calculus, which in short says that integration and differentiation are complementary operations. Having studied all these topics in great detail, then you were introduced to the topic of ordinary differential equations. Let's quickly go through the important concepts from this topic. What is an ordinary differential equation? It is an equation having at least one derivative. Note that we have not yet studied partial differential equations, so when we say at least one derivative, it has to be derivative of the dependent variable with respect to the independent variable. You may have second order, third order, or nth order derivative, but the requirement is the equation should have at least one derivative. Then you studied various terms associated with ordinary differential equations, such as the order of the differential equation, which is the order of the highest order derivative in that differential equation, and which also is equal to the number of arbitrary constants in the general solution of the differential equation. You also defined the degree of a differential equation. From an application point of view, you were introduced to the term particular solution, which involved finding the values of the arbitrary constants depending on supplementary information provided in the question. The additional information provided in the problem usually consisted of the initial and the boundary conditions. If the independent variable is time, then at t equal to 0, whatever value the dependent variable takes is set to define an initial condition. If the independent variable is a spatial variable x, then the corresponding value of the dependent variable at a particular value of x is called a boundary condition. Then you classified the ordinary differential equations into various categories and developed the methods to solve each of the type. The first one was variable separable. Then you studied exact differential equations and reducible to exact differential equations, wherein we have to multiply the given differential equation by a function called as the integrating factor so that it becomes exact, and then you can very easily solve it. You defined linear differential equation of first order and first degree, whose standard form is dy by dx plus py equal to q, where p and q are either functions of x or constants. You also defined higher order linear differential equations. You developed the theory of solving linear differential equations with constant coefficients, and also few differential equations with variable coefficients, such as the Cauchy's differential equation and the Legendre's differential equation. Such differential equations had two parts in their solutions: the complementary function yc and the particular integral yp. To find the particular integral, we used the general method or the shortcut methods or the method of variation of parameters. Now, do we have such types or methods for partial differential equations? Yes. We are going to make use of the variables separable method to solve some partial differential equations, and we are also going to define linear partial differential equations as well as homogeneous partial differential equations. And finally, you studied the applications of ordinary differential equations. In the first stage, you were introduced to the applications of only first order and first degree differential equations, and later on the applications of second and higher order differential equations. I have made a list of some of these applications: the Newton's law of cooling, where the independent variable is time t. We have applications in mechanics, such as the differential equation of simple harmonic motion, and applications of Newton's second law to various systems in mechanics. Even here, the independent variable is time, but in some of the cases, it may even be the spatial variable x, such as the expression for acceleration as v into dv by dx. One of the applications which you may recall from mechanics is to find the escape velocity of any object thrown from the surface of the earth. Then we studied heat conduction in one dimension. In the course on partial differential equations, we are going to generalize this, and we are going to introduce 2 as well as 3-dimensional heat conduction equation, as well as the temporal variable t in the heat conduction. We have also seen chemical mixing problems based on this differential equation. We studied the electric circuits involving the resistors, the capacitors and the inductances connected in series. We have also seen population dynamics applications of differential equations such as the predator-prey model, the radioactive decay and growth of bacteria. Let's now go to partial differentiation, wherein we have functions of at least two independent variables or more. We define the partial derivative of z with respect to x in a way very similar to that of ordinary derivative, but we treat all other variables, in this case the variable y, as constants. So we get dabba z by dabba x as the limit as h tends to 0, f of x plus h comma y minus f of x comma y upon h. Now you may ask, why are we studying all these definitions, which you already know? Recall that the most important part in any ordinary differential equation is the correct mathematical modeling of the given phenomena. If we fail to model it correctly, then our model won't work and will not produce satisfactory results. Later on we will see that it is the definition of partial derivatives that we are going to use in obtaining various partial differential equations, and that is the reason why we are having a brief revision of all these basic things. We also have seen higher ordered partial derivatives such as the second derivative of z with respect to x as well as y. But we also have mixed partial derivatives which do not exist for functions of single variable. We have also seen the Euler's theorem of homogeneous functions, which says that if z is a homogeneous function of degree n, then x into dabba z by dabba x plus y into dabba z by dabba y equal to nz. Here I am assuming that z is a function of only two variables x and y. Now what is this? This is an equation containing partial derivatives of z with respect to x as well as y. So we already have an example of a partial differential equation. The statement of the Euler's theorem of homogeneous functions is a partial differential equation, and so are the deductions of Euler's theorem. Another very important topic on partial differentiation is the chain rule. Let z be a function of two variables x and y, and let x and y be functions of two more variables r and theta. If we are to find the partial derivative of z with respect to r, according to the chain rule, we first differentiate z with respect to x. We multiply this derivative by partial derivative of x with respect to r, plus we repeat the process, but this time we take the intermediate variable as y, and thereby we get dabba z by dabba r in terms of the known relations. Does this equation contain partial derivatives? Yes. So the chain rule of partial derivatives is yet another example of a partial differential equation. The last thing which I want to tell you before we formally define a PDE is the Laplacian del squared. In vector differential calculus, we defined divergence of a vector valued function and gradient of a scalar valued function, and we verified that del dot del phi, or the divergence of the gradient of a scalar function, is equal to del squared phi. In other words, if phi is a function of two variables, then del squared phi is dabba 2 phi by dabba x squared plus dabba 2 phi by dabba y squared equal to, well, it can be anything, 0, a constant, a function of x and y, or phi itself. Again we have got a partial differential equation here, but this time it is of second order, as it contains the second order derivatives of phi with respect to x as well as y. Having revised the important concepts from univariate calculus, ordinary differential equations, and partial derivatives, we are now in an appropriate position to start discussing the partial differential equations. A partial differential equation is defined as an equation involving one or more partial derivatives of an unknown function of at least two variables. So this definition is very much similar to that of ODE. The only difference is that we have a multivariable unknown function. The condition that at least one derivative should exist in the equation is same. The order of a partial differential equation is defined as the order of the highest ordered derivative of the PDE. Again, very similar to ODE. Let's go to linearity. A partial differential equation is said to be linear if it is of first degree in the unknown function and its derivatives. In other words, if u is the unknown function of two independent variables x and y, then for the differential equation to be linear, we cannot have the function u and its derivatives appearing in the same term. If the differential equation contains such terms, then that is no longer a linear differential equation. Let's now define homogeneity in the context of linearity. A linear partial differential equation is said to be homogeneous if every term of the differential equation contains the unknown function or its derivatives. Let's now go to some examples wherein we will determine the order of the partial differential equation, and we will also check whether the differential equation is linear and homogeneous. Here is a list of important partial differential equations. For us, the first three differential equations are of particular importance. Let us start with the first one. Dabba 2u by dabba d squared equal to c squared into dabba 2u by dabba x squared. This is one-dimensional wave equation. It is called one-dimensional because there is only one spatial variable x and t is the temporal variable. If we let c squared to be a constant, then the given differential equation is both linear and homogeneous. Let's now go to one-dimensional heat equation, which is dabba u by dabba t equal to c squared into dabba 2u by dabba x squared. Note the difference between these two. The right hand sides of both these equations are identical, but for wave equation, the left hand side consists of second order derivative of u with respect to time, and for heat equation we have the first order derivative. So if we treat c squared as a constant, which in most of the cases is a constant, then the 1D heat equation is linear and homogeneous. Let's go to two-dimensional Laplace equation now, which is dabba 2u by dabba x squared plus dabba 2u by dabba y squared equal to 0. If u is temperature, then this differential equation is also known as two-dimensional steady state heat conduction equation. The right hand side of this differential equation is 0, so it is homogeneous. And each term on the left hand side is derivative of u, so this is linear and homogeneous. The two-dimensional Poisson's equation is dabba 2u by dabba x squared plus dabba 2u by dabba y squared equal to f of x comma y. Note that the right hand side of this differential equation does not contain u. So as long as f of x comma y is not equal to 0, the Poisson's equation is not homogeneous, because a homogeneous partial differential equation contains u or its derivatives in each term of the PDE. As f of x comma y is independent of u, we can say that it is not homogeneous but is linear. Let's go to two-dimensional wave equation now. Note the addition of dabba 2u by dabba y squared to the right hand side of one-dimensional wave equation. Here we had c squared into dabba 2u by dabba x squared. Here we have c squared into dabba 2u by dabba x squared plus dabba 2u by dabba y squared. So we have two spatial variables x and y, hence the name two-dimensional wave equation. If we let c squared to be a constant, then this equation is both linear and homogeneous. At last, let us discuss the three-dimensional Laplace equation, which can also be written as del squared u equal to 0, where del squared is the Laplacian which we discussed earlier. Just like its two-dimensional counterpart, the 3D Laplace's equation is both linear and homogeneous. Let me repeat this one more time. In our curriculum, the first three partial differential equations are of utmost importance. So we are going to derive all three of them, and we are going to develop techniques to solve the three differential equations, which involves the method of separation of variables or variable separable form. You will also see Fourier series as well as Fourier transform being used to obtain solutions of some cases of the three partial differential equations. Let us define solution of a partial differential equation. Note that we are going to define it in the context of some region R of the space of independent variables. It is defined as a function which must satisfy the partial differential equation, obviously, but it should also have all the derivatives appearing in the partial differential equations in some domain D containing the region R. In short, the derivatives which appear in the partial differential equation should exist for all those values of the independent variables which are of our concern. Let us now understand the significance of the initial and the boundary conditions for the partial differential equation. We are going to consider the 2D Laplace equation, that is dA 2u by dA x squared plus dA 2u by dA y squared equal to 0. I am presenting four different functions here. Fourth one is logarithmic, third one involves hyperbolic and trigonometric, the second one involves exponential and trigonometric, and the first one is algebraic. Surprisingly, all of them satisfy this differential equation. Let us do it for the first case, where u is x squared minus y squared. So dA u by dA x is 2x, and dA 2u by dA x squared will be 2. As y squared has negative sign, uy will be minus 2y, and the second derivative will be minus 2. So the addition of uxx and uyy will be 2 plus minus 2, that is 0. So we have verified that the first function is a solution of the partial differential equation here. I am leaving the verification part for the second, third and the fourth functions to you. So what you have to do is, you have to obtain the second order derivatives of u with respect to x as well as with respect to y. For all three functions, you have to add the derivatives as we did for the example 1. You should get addition of the derivatives as 0. The takeaway point is that all four functions are fundamentally different, in the sense that first one is algebraic, second one involves product of exponential and trigonometric, which does not involve algebraic functions at all. In the third one we have hyperbolic and trigonometric, and in the fourth one we have a logarithmic functions. So these seemingly unrelated functions are solutions of the same differential equation here. And this is where initial and boundary conditions come into play. We reiterate the fact that any partial differential equation such as this one is a mathematical model of certain physical phenomena. And it is that physical phenomenon which is going to tell us what initial conditions and boundary conditions should be imposed on the solution that we got after solving the partial differential equation. And this is where the role of initial and the boundary conditions becomes crucial. In fact, the initial and the boundary conditions are so crucial for the solution of the partial differential equation that when we develop an approach to solve such partial differential equations, we make use of the initial and the boundary conditions. When solving ordinary differential equations, we first obtain the general solution and then we find the values of the arbitrary constants. However, for partial differential equations, instead of finding the general solutions, we consider the initial and the boundary conditions right in the process of solution itself, and we come up with the specific solution which suits the physical phenomenon which we are modeling. The formal definition of boundary condition is that the function must assume particular values over the boundary of R, or the space of independent variables, and that of initial condition is that if time is one of the independent variables, then the function must assume a particular value at t equal to 0. We have similar situation in ordinary differential equations as well. If we know the function's value when t is 0, we call that condition as the initial condition. The obvious feature of initial condition is that time must be one of the independent variables, unlike this differential equation here where t does not exist. So to solve this differential equation, it will be inappropriate to state the initial conditions simply because time is not one of the independent variables. So to solve this differential equation, we must know the related boundary conditions. Let's now see the fundamental theorem on superposition, which is an analog of the theorem which we saw for ordinary differential equations. If u1 and u2 are solutions of a homogeneous and linear partial differential equation in some region R of the space of independent variables, then the function u, which is c1u1 plus c2u2 with any constants c1 and c2, is also a solution of that partial differential equation in the same region R. The function u is a linear combination of the functions u1 and u2 which are already the solutions of the given partial differential equation. Note that this theorem applies only when the given differential equation is both homogeneous as well as linear. Let's quickly recall what superposition means for ordinary differential equations. Let us consider this second ordered partial differential equation. I have already obtained two solutions of this ordinary differential equation. The first one is alpha e to the power 2x and the second one is beta e to the power 3x. Let's call them u1 and u2. Alpha and beta are the arbitrary constants. According to the superposition principle, u1 plus u2, which is alpha e to the power 2x plus beta e to the power 3x, will also be a solution of the differential equation. You may now check that this function here is actually the general solution of the ordinary differential equation. As the right hand side is 0, there will not be any particular integral. So all we have to do is to find the complementary function. In this case, the auxiliary equation is m squared minus 5m plus 6, whose roots are 2 and 3, and hence the solution alpha e to the power 2x plus beta e to the power 3x, which is a linear combination of the independent solutions e to the power 2x and e to the power 3x. Similar theorem holds true in the context of partial differential equations as well. The condition is that the differential equation must be homogeneous and linear. We are now going to solve two partial differential equations which can be solved by treating them as ordinary differential equations. Let us start with the first example. Dabba 2u by dabba x squared minus u equal to 0, where u is a function of two independent variables x and y. We note that nowhere in the partial differential equation the derivatives with respect to y appear. In other words, we can solve this partial differential equation as if it were an ordinary differential equation with the independent variable x. If we solve this ordinary differential equation, its general solution will be c1 e raised to x plus c2 e to the power minus x. Here we obtained the roots of the auxiliary equation m squared minus 1 equal to 0, which are plus or minus 1. But note that unlike w, u is not a function of x alone, u is a function of y as well. And therefore, u must be equal to c1 of y e raised to x plus c2 of y e to the power minus x. In w, we had c1 and c2 as arbitrary constants. And for partial differential equations solution, we are treating c1 and c2 as functions of y. As the given partial differential equation does not contain even a single derivative of u with respect to y, the role of arbitrary constants c1 and c2 will now be played by the unknown functions of y, c1 of y and c2 of y. In other words, I may write any function of y, even a composite function such as sine of e raised to y, in the place of c1 of y and c2 of y, and that will still serve as the general solution of the given partial differential equation. And this is where the conditions, be them initial or boundary, come into play. Let us go to the second question, which says uxy plus ux equal to 0. Before we begin to solve this differential equation, let me remind you that u of xy actually means we first differentiate u with respect to x and then with respect to y. Sometimes uxy is interpreted as dabba by dabba x of dabba u by dabba y. But this will be valid only when the function u satisfies the commutative property of partial differentiation. But unless stated, we will interpret u of xy as dabba by dabba y of dabba u by dabba x. Therefore, we can write the given differential equation as dabba by dabba y of ux plus u of x equal to 0. We now let u of x as z. Therefore, dabba z by dabba y plus z equal to 0. Therefore, dabba z by dabba y will be minus z. Therefore, dabba z by z will be equal to minus dabba y. So we converted the given partial differential equation into a variable separable partial differential equation. We now integrate both sides, which gives us log of z equal to minus y plus c1 of x. Therefore, log of dabba u by dabba x equal to minus y plus c1 of x. Therefore, dabba u by dabba x will be equal to e to the power minus y into e to the power c1 of x, and therefore u will be equal to e to the power minus y into integral of e to the power c1 of x dx. So note that to solve this problem, we first substituted the partial derivative of the unknown function u with respect to x as a new variable z, which then allowed us to separate the variables. We then integrated both sides. We ended up getting this general solution. We now went back and replaced z by dabba u by dabba x. We again separated the variables, and ultimately we got the solution as u equal to e to the power minus pi into integral of e to the power c1 of x dx. Just like the first question, c1 of x can be any function of x. And no matter what function you write here, our solution will always satisfy the given partial differential equation.